Yeah, it's right there.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fitton Center for Creative Arts on this beautiful but chilly November afternoon. My name is Ian Mackenzie Thurley. I'm the Executive Director here at the Fitton Center. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all back to the Fitton for this installment of Celebrating Self with the wonderful Randi, Rico. As ever, I'd like to thank the City of Hamilton, the Hamilton Community Foundation, Arts Wave in Cincinnati, and the Ohio Arts Council for their sustained support of the Fitton Center. We really do appreciate it. Put your hands together for them. We appreciate it very much. To our series sponsor for Celebrating Self again this year, Kathy Klink, thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Our event sponsors today are Ohio Eagle Distributing and Lifestyle Landscaping Solutions, and Mr. Andy Weltzer, and Andy is with us today as well. Thank you, Andy. If you've seen our beautiful gardens and our landscaping and our wonderful trees and gardens that we're developing here at the Fitton Center, that has all been Andy, and we've appreciated his support and that of his team over many years. To our media partner, and hello again to TV Hamilton, thank you so much. We appreciate everything you do. And last but not least, our catering sponsors with Two Women in a Kitchen with another fantastic lunch. Please put your hands together for them. And I want to say a big thank you to our friends from Hamilton High School Transitions team. You see them coming and welcoming us and taking coats and getting drinks and being a part of the crew here at the Fitton Center. We appreciate everything you do, so thank you so much. Great stuff. Fantastic. Lots to see and do here at the Fitton Center. We have a fantastic new exhibition that has opened just this past Saturday night in Home Free and Being Good. It's downstairs in our second and first floor galleries. The Being Good is an incredible exhibition coming from Sydney, Ohio. Home Free is co-curated with Dr. Nicole Fleetwood and Amy Wisman. And the exciting thing there is they are both local to Butler County, most particularly Dr. Nicole, who went to Hamilton High and graduated in 1990. So she's there at NYU now and doing amazing things around the country and around the world, but back here in Hamilton. Coming up in just 1 week or so, we have our Canary in Combat Boots, which is our Veterans Day event. So if you have a veteran in your family or somebody who is currently in service, there's discounted tickets available. That's going to be a fantastic cabaret show right on this very stage, and that is on the 11th of November. I'd love to tell you all about it Christmas, but Christmas is sold out, so we're excited about that. But we do have one event for that you'll be able to still get tickets for, and that is our Celebrating Self with Ben Smolder from Miami University, talking about the joy of Christmas. We're going to talk all about Christmas music and all those Christmas carols, those Christmas songs, and there's probably going to be a sing-along. So we're excited for that. The last thing for my church notice is you're going to get this in the mail. It's not going to be this big, it's going to be folded and pretty, but we want you to be able to see it as I hold it up. And some amazing people on the other side. I'm looking at you, Sue Samovisky. Look at that for gorgeous. And the Miller family and our friend Royal. We are kicking off our 30th anniversary campaign for the Fitton Center for our annual fundraising campaign. As many of you know, we're a completely independent non-profit organization, so everything we do here, we have to raise every single dollar for independently. So you'll see these in the mail, or if you'd like to have a conversation with Arnita, she'll gladly have that with you. Every little bit helps for us as we try to go forward and invest in the arts and in community here in Hamilton. And we strive to do that every single day, particularly with our arts education downstairs on our first floor and out into the community. We were out there last week. You'll see us in a couple of weeks out at tree lighting. So these things are important to us. We appreciate any assistance you can give us. So thank you very much. As I said, lots to see you do at the Fitton Center. We're getting ready for 2024, which is just around the corner. But so is winter. Winter is coming. When I first arrived in America, which is 20 odd years ago, so it would have been the summer of 2000. I arrived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I grew up in the tropics, and we had weather in Australia. We even still had like the isobars when on the things and on the map and things like that, and people point. We had weather, but you know, it was hot or not hot. Or So I came to Cincinnati, and I'm watching the TV, and every 2 to 5 minutes they would have the weather. Weather on the 8s, weather on the 9s, weather every 3 minutes. We interrupt the weather for the weather, and I said to Kelly, who became my wife, I'm like, what is this thing with the weather around here? Because I go outside and it's like 78 and sun. It was August or September. I'm like, I don't get it. She goes, wait. I'm like, okay. So we looked to get married in March, which we did. We got married in late March. I can't remember what date, but it's written down somewhere. Anyway, we got married in March. And I said to everyone, well, what's the weather going to be like in March? And everybody goes, don't know. I mean, what do you mean you don't? I'll ask someone else. Hey, what's the weather going to be like? Oh, I have really no idea. I'm like, have you not been here in March? Is there like the Farmer's Almanac? Did somebody not write it down from last year? Because we were thinking, do we have an outdoor wedding, an indoor wedding, a barn wedding? And nobody could tell me what the weather was like. And I had no idea. I'd never been here in March. And we got to March, we got to our wedding. Our wedding was a crisp post-fall going into spring day. The next day it snowed. And at that point, I understood a lot better what they were talking about when they said they didn't know what the weather was going to be like in March. So with all of that, we thought it was a great opportunity to bring one of our weather experts, one of those people that are a touchstone in Cincinnati that people wake up to and has a fan base, which is fantastic. But it's a big part of the social makeup of Southwest Ohio. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage and tell us all about the weather, Ms. Randi Rico from Channel 5. Thank you so much.
No, I will just put the cup on the ground, and when I disappear behind the thing, you guys know I'm just getting it back. There you go. All right. I'm also decidedly shorter than you, Ian. What a wonderful introduction. I just want Ian to talk about the weather the whole time. How fitting is it that this was the first graphic in my presentation? Like, hey, March Madness, because he's right. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Every one of them can bring us curveballs, right? And around here, it is. In 24 hours, we have actually had all 4 seasons. And I remember the year it was because it was March. And it was the afternoon, and then strong winds, and then big storms, and then snow by the time you woke up the next morning. So in 24 hours, we experienced such crazy extremes. I remember it was right before Bachfest, so it must have been early March into downtown. But this is why I love the weather, and specifically Ohio weather, because things can change over the course of a day, and it really is. Rain, ice storm, sleet. Whether you asked if you had to have your coat in the car, probably for part of the day, at least, right? It keeps us all on our toes, and I love forecasting in a place that has all 4 seasons, that are constantly changing. I was just thinking last week, looking at the beautiful fall colors, I don't want to live in a place where this doesn't happen. Right when you get that perfect time where the maples are all red and you're walking down the street and a couple leaves are falling, the sun's coming through the branches. I'm like, this is what we're supposed to see. And eventually we're supposed to see some snow. And we're supposed to have some nice spring days and some hot days in the summer. And it really is my favorite place because we get all the seasons. I have previously worked in Mississippi where it's hot and hotter, sticky all the time, and, occasionally a hurricane. I did work in Mississippi during a snowstorm. It was a dusting of snow. It melted away by noon. It shut everything down. And I remember having to work that morning, obviously, extended coverage of this dusting, which I know we do here sometimes too. But I walked outside, everything had melted away. I had to scrape together the snow that was left over on the windshields of all the cars in the parking lot, and I made 1 snowball out of it. And this was before that you could take the picture on your phone, so I had to develop the picture and send it to my mom and dad. But I was like, look, guys, this shut down the state of Mississippi for half a day. Because I'm actually originally from Cleveland. So, I know, I heard, the biggest compliment I've ever been paid is that people think I'm from Cincinnati. Because I love it in Cincinnati. The people are great. The weather is great. This is home to me. So when people ask where home is, I'm like, Cincinnati, Ohio. I did grow up on the east side of Cleveland, though, where lake effect snow bombarded us all the time. But I'm here at home in Cincinnati, and this is my family, guys. So if you're wondering what channel I'm on Channel 5. Over to the left is Katie Donovan. That one is me. That's Chief Meteorologist Kevin Robinson. He's a Princeton grad, so he's a local guy. She looks a little bit different now. She's about 8 months pregnant. You know, the time at the end where you're like, next week would be nice. That's where she is right now. So she's due early in December. And then Adam Berniston, the tall guy in the back, we made him step back like 4 steps because he's 6'5". I'm 5'2". We can't stand next to each other. We can't be in the same camera shot. And then next to Adam is Storm Tracker Max, which is our new fleet of weather vehicles. Technology has changed greatly in the 20 years I've been a meteorologist. This is pretty cool, though. It is our storm tracking tool. We've got 3 of them. And that thing made its maiden voyage to an elementary school right here in Hamilton in the last month. So it'll be out on the streets during big storms. We've got 360 cameras and weather sensors, and I think it just stopped. Did I turn it off? I probably turned it off. This is the one thing I use at work as a clicker, and I'm going to mess this up. But we have the Storm Max that we will be taking out on the streets. In storms, we've got a fleet of 3 of them. So if there's a storm up here in Butler County, we're sending this thing up here to the streets of Hamilton. If there's a storm in Kentucky, we have another one to send that way. But on fun, nice days, I'm taking them to schools. I'm taking them to farmers markets. I hope next year to hit trunk or treat and do like a candy with Randi thing where I hand out candy to all the kids. But this is my work family, and we spend a lot of time together, especially when the weather is bad. But it's a great team, and I've been part of it at Channel 5 for 16 years now, going on 17. So my friend Vera there in the front, I've been the morning meteorologist at Channel 5 her whole life. It's getting to the point where I get to say that at school talks. I'm like, yes, before you were born, I got this job. I was at the doctor's office not too long ago, and the nurse comes in, and she was like, oh, you spoke to my class. I was like, oh, where did you teach? She goes, no, I was in 4th grade. Oh. All right. Well, you might want to check my blood pressure, my cholesterol. We're going to go in here. So I've been doing it a while, and I wouldn't do this job if I didn't love it. It absolutely keeps me on my toes. And why in the world would you do a job where you have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning if you didn't love it? So 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, that's my alarm. I can't hit snooze because I would not make it to work. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to roll. I get to work by 3 a.m. I live in Loveland, so it's about a 22-minute commute, no traffic. And when the weather's bad, I can make my own lane on the highway because there's nobody else. So my day starts early to get you the forecast. And the only way I could do that also is with the help of my awesome family. It's my husband, John. He actually taught and coached at Middletown for a while. It's my son, Austin. He's 11. Quinn is 9. We live in Loveland. They're super fun. And yes, both of them get to stay up later than I do at night. In fact, I have no idea what their bedtimes are because I've never been part of that part of the day. I always go to sleep before they do. In fact, I spoke to the crowd at the fitness center. I know if some of you were here about, I think it was at least a decade ago. Because I recall I was pregnant with one of them. I don't know which one it was. It might have been my first. It might have been Austin. And I remember sitting here and looking at your faces, and you guys were so nice and so lovely. And I had this secret that I was having a kid, and I was like, I want to tell all of these people what's going on. But of course, didn't. But I absolutely remember that moment sitting here going, like, these people are great. I want to tell them my story, and that's a big part of it. And that's Austin and Quinn and John, and that's my family. And it is family why I initially got into weather. So that's my grandpa, Herb Henderson, my grandma, Lois. My grandpa was a navigator in the Army back in World War II. And when I was growing up, we'd go to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and he had that thing, or something very similar to it, on the wall right next to the door. And every time Grandpa would walk outside, we're going to the pool, we're going to the park, whatever, he'd just look at that thing, go, oh, it's going to rain today, oh, still we're going to be nice. I'm like, what is this thing on the wall telling you? That's not where the weather comes from. The weather comes from the person on TV. And now, of course, I can't tell this story because every kid has a Google Nest or an Alexa or whatever. And yes, the wall tells you exactly what the weather is going to be. You just ask it. Ask my kids their favorite thing. Hey, Alexa, what's the weather? They do it just to make me mad. I'm like, really? I'm right here. Oh, but Grandpa telling me about the barometer and explaining barometric pressure to me at a young age, which, I didn't really understand, but I was like, okay. If that says it's going to be dry and nice today, let's double check it, right? Watching the meteorologists on television, seeing what they did, comparing it to what the barometer and my grandpa, who I thought was obviously a weather genius, was going to say. So that got me interested in it when I was younger. Like I said, I grew up in Cleveland, the heart of lake effect snow. So when I was third, fourth grade, we had a meteorologist come to the classroom, and at the very end, he said, does anyone have any questions? And I remember sitting in the back of the room and did one of these deals, and he called on me, and he goes, what's your question? I said, how do you make a snow day? Because when you're in third grade, there's kind of one really important weather phenomenon, and that is enough snow to close school. And when you live on the east side of Cleveland, it's because of lake effect snow. So he explained, well, when the lake isn't frozen over and there's warm water and cold wind from Canada, whatever direction that wind comes in, it adds all that extra moisture to the air, and that turns into snow, and it dumps it on our town. You go a mile over, and they've got nothing. And so my town was in the middle of the snow belt, and I would watch the meteorologist at night going, is he going to talk about lake effect tonight? Yes. Mom, we're going to have a snow day in the morning. So that's where I grew up. That part that's highlighted in yellow that you can barely see, that's generally the snow belt areas, kind of the north and east of Cleveland. So I knew about barometers. I knew about lake effect snow. I had just enough knowledge to be dangerous. And I went to college at Ohio University. Go Bobcats. Yeah, I love it. Both of those are me. I went there. I played softball for the Ohio Bobcats. I was a right fielder there for 4 years. And while I wasn't in the outfield, I was on WCBI, the TV station there. We were very lucky at Ohio U. We had 2 live broadcasts a day. The noon show was like in a class. The class did the noon, and in the evening, the 6 o'clock, you had to be part of the news team. So I got to do that occasionally, and I absolutely loved doing forecasts for my games, because that's probably why I like weather so much. It's a sport, it's a contest, it's competitive, and it changes all the time. I remember we had I think it was Marshall coming to town, and I said, Coach, if we don't move up this game, we're not gonna get it in. She was like, well, the forecast says this. I said, yes, but I've been learning this stuff, and I really think that we're not gonna get 2 games in unless, we move up this. She said, no, we're gonna play. I said, well, what's gonna hail between games 1 and 2? And she goes, okay, Rico, whatever. Game 1 ends. In between games, dark clouds coming over. At Ohio University in Athens, you've got the ridges, right? So it's already ominous, and those are haunted buildings. You've got dark clouds coming in. I was like, ladies, put on your batting helmets. And they're like, what? I was like, tarp time. Pulled the tarp out. Hail everywhere. We didn't play game 2, but I would have thought I won the World Series, because I was like, I nailed this forecast. So winning a forecast, getting a forecast right is just the same for me as winning a ball game. So kind of fed my competitive nature. When I left Ohio University, I told you guys I went to Mississippi, was there for about a year and a half. I was there for 1 hurricane. It was Hurricane Ivan. It's very weird to be in a situation where you're supposed to be the expert, but you're also the only one in the room who's never been in one before, right? On the Gulf Coast or in Mississippi, there are people who have lived through dozens of hurricanes. I have read dozens of chapters about hurricanes at that point. So I'm trying to be the expert on television while also trying not to get so nervous about an incoming hurricane that I threw up, right? But I covered Hurricane Ivan. It was one, like many, where you're watching the cone, seeing where it goes. So they were going to send me down to the Gulf Coast to cover it, and then the tracks shifted about a day out, so they called me back because it moved enough that my town was going to be more impacted, and they wanted me in the building. Either way, we did a couple days of coverage of Ivan and the storm, and when I was done, my parents wanted to make sure I was okay. This was pre-internet. They only saw what they saw Al Roker and Harry Smith and whoever else on the national networks down, at the Gulf Coast. They wanted to make sure I was okay. So bought a plane ticket home, but I had this cool VHS tape of all my weather coverage from Hurricane Ivan. Showed it to them. They're like, we're glad you're in one piece. Brought it to a TV station in Dayton because my boyfriend at the time was a football coach. And I dropped it off at the TV station on my way to a football game. It turned into a 2.5-hour job interview, and they hired me the next day. I married the guy. We've got the 2 kids. It all worked out. But, while I was in Mississippi, all I wanted was winter weather back. And within a month of me getting there, we had record snowfall. 13 inches of snow, an inch of sleet on top, so you've got like the foot of snow and then a crunch factor when you're trying to walk through it. So I didn't leave the TV station for 3 days during that storm. I remember when it was over, I drove a Mini Cooper at the time, and it just looked like a little igloo in the parking lot. I had enough time to dig myself out, go home, sleep, and come right back in for my next shift. But back in Ohio, and then obviously I've been in Cincinnati since 2007, I think. Yeah. So this is where I work. This is my office. This is the Weather Center and the studio at the station. We've got robotic cameras, so if you're wondering if we have cameramen or women moving the cameras around, not anymore. It's all like a video game in the control room. This is the Weather Center. So the 2 computers on the left are how we control our graphics and our radar. And the one to the right is also weather graphics. But I think the most important tool right there is the clipboard that you see, because we are old school. All our forecasting is done by hand. All of those are the previous shifts and the previous meteorologists, because we leave each other notes. We, talk about trends, because I'm on in the mornings, but Kevin's on at 11:30 at night. You don't want him saying one thing and me saying something completely different in the morning. So we kind of leave our notes and our ideas about what's going on with the forecast, because you can give the same weather data. I'll show you all of our data. It's lots of data, lots of numbers, and more every day. But you don't want someone in the morning saying one thing, evening saying something else. But what are there? Probably 20 television meteorologists amongst all the stations or so. You'd give us all the same data, we'd probably come up with 20 different forecasts, just based on experience and trends and which models you believe in different setups. So we kind of try to keep it all together. So putting together a forecast is not easy. You all learn about that in the month of March when you make your predictions for what's going to happen. You expect the 1 seeds to win out. Most of the time they do. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So we are the most accurate in Cincinnati. There is actually an independent service that measures these things. It's called Weather Rate, and they track every forecast every day from every TV station. And they grade it like golf, lowest score wins. So every time you mess up, and that means temperature's more than 3 degrees off, you get a 1/2 inch of rain, and you said it was going to be a 1/4 inch of rain. You said it was going to be everyone's favorite, no real snow accumulation, but you get 3 inches of snow accumulation. That adds points. So you want the low score, and for the last 12 years, we have had the lowest score in Cincinnati, and several of those times the lowest score in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So very cool to compare us to all the other TV stations. Now, nationally, I'm not comparing us with California, right? Like the San Diego meteorologist probably has an easier time getting a very low score on that. But everyone always says, I wish I could be wrong all the time and still keep my job. Well, technically, we have about an 86 to 94% accuracy rate. And it hurts me even more when we don't nail the forecast. You should have seen me last night during trick or treat, because all morning long, that's what I was preaching. I was like, guys, this front's going to come through 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's going to go northwest to southeast. We're going to get gusty winds. We're going to get some flurries. It started flurrying in Loveland at about 6 p.m., and I danced across the driveway. All the other parents were like, this is awful. What in the world? I'm like, but I called it. So my kids are layered up. I'm layered up. We're good to go. So it really it is something I take pride in when I can nail a forecast, and also not so much just the numbers, but the impact on your life, because it doesn't matter if you're young or old, or you live east or west or north or south, or what your job is, or if you're retired, the weather impacts everyone. Even if you stay at home all the time, services and providers that come to you, they need nice weather outside to get to you. So it doesn't matter, weather impacts everybody, and it's really important for us to nail down the impact of snow, because yeah, a dusting of snow doesn't sound like much. That dusting hits at 6 a.m., you guys know what happens on the roads, right? Traffic is gnarled, school could get canceled if it's icy. So I try to really focus on the impact of any weather event. So some of our weather tools, obviously the radar, you guys have seen this on every station in town. We do have our very own live weather radar. There are a lot of different types of weather, and there has been so much advancements in the technology of radar. We have what's called dual pole, which means it's sending out signals in two different directions. So when I show little kids, I do this. All right, so the radar is going to send out a signal this way, and it's also going to send out a signal this way, and it's going around in a circle. So it could definitely be a TikTok dance or some sort of viral internet dance when you get everybody doing what the radar does, because it's not just scanning side to side, it's scanning up and down. So when it hits something, right, because that's what the radar does. It sends out a signal, it hits something, and it sends a signal back to the radar. It doesn't just see that it hits something, it can tell how big it is. And that's how we've actually been able to advance warning technology to be able to identify a tornado based on the signature of debris on the radar. So we're not just looking at rain or snow or sleet or lightning. We can actually look at debris balls and see, like, that's not just rain, that's stuff lofted up in the air. And then they can kind of nail down the warnings a little more specifically, or a lot of times you get a tornado warning based on radar imagery because we're looking at velocity, which is winds going toward and winds going away from the radar, and we can kind of see where that would indicate some rotation, whether that is rotating on the ground, which would be a tornado, or it's rotating up in the clouds, which would be a funnel cloud, or many of the scary looking clouds that sometimes roll through town. Now we can actually see debris lofted, and we can actually verify that it is a dangerous situation. This tornado has touched the ground and it has picked stuff up, and then kind of see where it's going. So right now, it takes about 90 seconds for our radar to make a full loop around the area. So data is about 90 seconds old. It used to be 5 minutes was the standard. So slowly getting those times down, and that helps save lives, right? Warning times, lead times are now closer to 15 minutes. So if you have 15 minutes to get to your safe place, that's a lot better than 90 seconds. A lot of times, sometimes it is the case, right? There are times where it's like as soon as the sirens go off, you got to hit the ground or head to your safe place. But now the average lead time is getting better and getting longer, giving more people time to prepare and to get to their safe place. Here's a glamour shot of our radar. It is located about a mile away from the TV station. We are up in Mount Auburn, and so this is just down the road from us. I took the picture from the ground looking up at the radar, and the radar sends out that signal, right, in a big circle. Well, it can see all around for 100 more miles. It could not be able to see me standing on the ground next to it, though, right? The radar doesn't send a signal down. All you'd get was feedback. So our radar technically is located downtown, so we don't get a great view of storms into downtown. That's why we have a network of 5 other radars we can tap into that do have kind of a better angle, right? So if we can't see downtown with our radar, because we're downtown, the radar that is located at CVG has a great view of downtown because it's located a little further south into Kentucky. Or we can use the Indianapolis radar. We can use the National Weather Service radar out of Wilmington or out of Louisville. So we have a network of radars to complement our live radar that we use every day. And of course, you'll see the warnings that pop up on your screen. National Weather Service is in charge of issuing warnings. However, we will jump on television if we think there is a dangerous storm coming. It doesn't matter if we're in Hamilton or if it's in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, or moving through Adams County. We'll pop on and repeat the same things that you've learned since you were little, right? The little kids go through the drills all the time at school. They have to. About Vera's like, yup. They know exactly where they're supposed to go. So sometimes, it's just repeating the warnings because sometimes, when you get older, you don't practice those things or you're in an unfamiliar place. So we try to nail it down. One thing we noticed, obviously, is with a map like this, sometimes people just don't know what county they live in or where they live in. So when we say, hey, there's a tornado warning for Butler County, most of you guys, if you're in Hamilton, you are Butler County residents. But there are some people, when we just put the little map up in the corner, they don't know where on that little map they are, because it doesn't look like Ohio. It looks like this weird little cutout. It's, the part of our region that can watch us. So that's this would be just an example of the warnings that go out, and obviously very important that you know your location. And when the warnings happen, we are going to get on the ground, right, with our Storm Tracker Max. Or this is me during those Dayton tornadoes, May of 2019. That was Memorial Day weekend, right? It was Memorial Day. So people are not watching television that weekend. It's, you're at a picnic, right? You're at your cousin's house. You're bringing the potato salad. It's been a lovely afternoon. And then we had just a slight risk for severe weather that night. This is up in Dayton, just outside of Fairborn, which is actually where I lived when I worked in Dayton. And I had gone to bed, and I already wake up at 2 a.m. My phone rang at, I want to say 11:45, and they said, radar's confirming there's a dangerous tornado headed into Dayton. We're picking you up, you're going. So 11:45 at night, I probably had gone to bed a little later than usual that night because it was a holiday. Got ready, headed out, and we were on the ground in the dark, helping people locate their neighbors. I mean, I was there, if I left at 11:45, midnight, we were there by 1. We don't go on the air till 4:30 in the morning, so I had 3 hours. I don't need to be shoving a camera in people's faces for 3 hours. What I can do, though, is use the lights that we have on our cameras to light the road so people aren't stepping on glass and nails and things like that. Helping people who, know that, Miss Smith that lives down the road, she's, making sure she's okay because she's not super mobile. So we were out there helping neighbors help each other, and then people wanted to tell us their stories just because we're walking there helping them. It was obviously traumatic day for so many people in that neighborhood. We were live all that day, all the next day. We went back months later. This house I'm in front of, the family there, they were lovely. Their dog was trapped in the basement. They couldn't get to the dog. And that was in the morning. By this noon live shot, the dog had been rescued from the basement, so that was a good update for everybody. But just being there on the ground in people's worst moments is why we do our job, so that they're safe during that. We talked to a lot of people who said, the warning went off and I ran. One lady had time to get out of her kitchen or out of her chair, and she was like, I needed to go to the bathroom, but I was not going to. I was like, good. And she said the windows blew out, 30 seconds after she got to her safe place. So it was eye-opening, and just an experience that I won't ever forget for the people that we met, that I still think about as I drive by that neighborhood. I've driven through and said hi to them a couple of times as we've gone to Dayton. But we do the same thing for the people in our area that this happens to. So this is obviously an extreme case, right? Most of the time, this is not what we're forecasting. But I want to show you the other tools that we use to put together a forecast. So that's me hanging out in Wilmington, and that is a weather balloon. So it's as big as I am, and again, I'm not the tallest human, 5'2" on a good day. But attached to that, I'm holding in my hand, that white box is where all of the weather instruments are. So barometer, obviously, not the size of the one my Grandpa Henderson used to have. Thermometer, anemometer, all the sensors that you would need to take weather readings, right? Twice a day across the country, 800 weather balloons go up. And this is a network. They all go out at the same time and let them go. It's a helium balloon. It does what helium balloons do best, right? When you're a 3-year-old, they fly away and it makes you cry. Here, it's giving us valuable weather data. And as it goes up, it takes sensors, it takes readings of the temperature, the dew point, the wind speed, sends them back to the ground, and continues to do that until it does what all good balloons do. Eventually, it pops. And if you look at on the ground there, that orange thing, that's a parachute. So it does take the little box of weather instruments back down to the ground. The National Weather Service people say they get probably maybe 30% of those back. It says harmless weather instrument because, there's a box falling from the sky with an orange parachute attached. It might get your attention. You might call the authorities. It says return to the National Weather Service. They get some of them back, but they can land 125 miles away from the launch site. Basically, they have to get at least 24,000 feet up to be reliable. And sometimes if the winds are crazy, it'll blow those things to bits before they get there. But if they get up to 24,000 feet, then it's reliable data. Most of them make it 60 to 100,000 feet above the Earth's surface. And they do that 2 times a day because we don't just need to know what's going on down here. It's actually way more important what's going on every level of the atmosphere up into the clouds, and that's what they're tracking. So when it comes back down, it gets fed into these supercomputers, and it spits out a bunch of data. That's a skew-T diagram that kind of shows you the temperature and the dew point. A lot of other data points get fed in, and again, these are set off all over the country. So it's basically like making a layer cake of our country and our weather, right? So you can go, okay, well, let's go up to, and it's not a height, it's a millibar reading. It gets to a certain millibar reading, and it takes a reading, and it sends it down to the ground. But you can take them all, and you can take a little cross-section of our country so we can see where the high pressure is, where the low pressure is, which conditions are favorable for storm development, which ones are, maybe looking at storms that would not develop. It might be a day where we're saying, there's a chance, conditional threat of severe storms. They'll sound out an extra balloon that day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to see if, what's going on in our atmosphere. Because in the summertime and the springtime, and let's face it, now you can get a severe storm or a tornado in any month of the year. It's also super important in forecasting winter weather. So if you kind of take a look, this is my layer cake analogy, sort of. Up in the clouds, obviously, they're made of ice. It's cold. If the atmosphere is below freezing from the clouds all the way down to the ground, that's an easy one. That's all snow. Our winter storms around here, they don't do that all that often. We're usually on that divider line with some mixed precipitation. So second example is sleet, where you've got the cold air up top, falls down through cold air, but then there's like a sneaky warm layer that obviously we can't see, but the weather balloon can see. And so when the snow falls into that, it melts. And then it gets closer to the ground, it gets into colder air, it freezes back up again, and that's sleet. And if you guys remember, the last 2 winters, our big winter weather events actually ended up being sleet storms. Freezing rain falls from the cloud, it's warm all the way down to the ground, but the ground is below freezing, so it just basically freezes into a sheet of ice, turns everything into a skating rink. And of course, rain's pretty easy there as well. It falls, it's warm all the way to the ground, and the ground is warm as well. Now that's a lovely explanation, but my favorite thing to do is relate things to food. So, freezing rain is your glazed donut, right? It basically, it falls as rain, it covers the ground, it covers your car, it covers any surface that is below freezing. That brings down tree limbs, it brings down power lines, because they've all got that delicious glaze on it. On a donut, it's great. On your, neighborhood power lines, not so great. So I relate freezing rain to glazed donuts. Second one is sleet, right? So that's like the nice little sprinkle donut. Sleet storm, obviously, sleet does accumulate. It's not as awful as freezing rain or snow, but that's the one you can kind of hear it, right? So if you can hear the pellets hitting, you can usually hear it hitting the window. If you're driving in it, it kind of bounces off. So that's sleet. And of course, the bottom one, Dippin' Dots. That is grapple. Dippin' Dots is, it's weird because you're like, oh, is that that's not sleet, it's not hail, it's grapple. And they're like, what's grapple? I'm like, does it look like Dippin' Dots? Like, yes. So that's basically just super cooled droplets, and then they kind of condense together, they condense onto snowflakes, and you get this Dippin' Dot kind of ball that'll fall from the sky. So sometimes that's our job as scientists. Yes, we can talk about all the upper air charts and all of that fun stuff, but you don't want to talk over people's head. People always remember food. So I do try to use food analogies as often as possible with this. And this one actually works real well too. Watches and warnings. Doesn't matter how old you are, you need to know the difference between a watch and a warning. A severe weather watch, whether it's a tornado watch, severe thunderstorm watch, whatever, means the conditions are right to have severe weather. So a cupcake watch, you've got the ingredients. They haven't come together yet, right? You may or may not end up with a cupcake. you may just end up with the ingredients still in place. Or, if you're like me, you end up dropping that egg on the floor and you miss one of the ingredients completely, and it doesn't turn out the way that you thought it was going to. A cupcake warning is, hey, we've got a cupcake. So in the weather world, a warning is we've got whatever, a tornado, a severe thunderstorm, a winter storm. The warning means it's happening, it's here, it's in place. It's a fully realized cupcake. So I use this a lot when I teach kids the difference between a watch and a warning, because watches go out, hours, sometimes the day before, and you don't want to be, let's face it, some people do panic, and I understand that, but you don't want to be worried about something that's happening the next day. You plan for it, you're ready for it, you're prepared. That's what a watch is for. Warning is take action. Eat the cupcake. I will always encourage you to eat the cupcake. So, this is I stole this from another meteorologist who is from Ohio. He actually works in Charlotte, Brad Panovich. But what a 20% chance of rain really means. So you got your 10 folks there, 20% chance of rain. 2 guys on the left. Why is it raining? It's only a 20% chance. They never get it right. The other 8. Why isn't it raining? They said there was a chance of rain. They're never right. We have kind of moved away from using percentages because it confuses everybody. Nobody really knows, viewers, everybody on the street, they may not know what a 20% chance actually means. And it's a probability. We call them POPs, probability of precipitation. And it is an equation that is coverage of our area that will be impacted by rain or snow or whatever it is, and confidence we have that it's actually going to happen. So you put those things together and you get your possibility of precipitation. So if we think half of the Cincinnati viewing area is going to get hit with rain, we'll go with, though snow's fun because we had it last night, we'll go with rain. So 50% chance, or 50% of our area will see rain, and we're 100% confident this system is coming in. That's a 50% chance of rain. If we're saying that half of the area is going to get hit with the rain, but we're only half sure this system's going to happen, that's going to be a 25% chance of rain. That's a lot of math to do at 3 o'clock in the morning. And no one understands it, right? So, and here's the thing. Most of us don't spend our whole day in the same part of town. So that is for any individual spot. If I forecast a 50% chance of rain and I stand outside my house all day long, about half the time I'll get wet. Well, I also don't do that, right? I go downtown. I go get to my kids' games. I'm going all over town, and that actually adds to your chances of seeing rain because you're in more portions of the area. It's like buying more raffle tickets for a raffle. If you go to more than one spot, you may have a better chance of seeing some rain or snow. Conversely, if you go to a different part of town at a time where the rain's in the part of town you were at, maybe you didn't think it rained. So, it's confusing. Apps constantly give you percentages, hour by hour percentages. Like, there's a 16% chance of rain in the next 15 minutes. Oh, well, that means nothing to me. This is what they don't tell you. It doesn't tell you the intensity of that rain, right? A 50% chance of rain. Is it going to flash flood? Is it drizzle? Both could be a 50% chance of rain. It doesn't tell you the intensity of the rain or snow, or the amount of rain or snow. It doesn't tell you the length of time it rains or snows. You've been to Florida. It rains almost every afternoon. It doesn't rain the whole time. People don't not go to Disney because there's a pop-up storm in the afternoon, but there's always a rain chance. So, 100% chance of rain could be drizzle for a few hours. 100% chance of rain could be a flash flood. 20% chance of rain could be a flash flood. So percentages, there's so much wiggle room in there that we've kind of moved away for that, and we use words. So we'll say scattered rain. So if I say scattered rain, you're like, all right, well, it might hit Hamilton, might hit those guys over in Middletown, might hit Fairfield, might hit Kentucky, scattered around the area. Or, likely. Likely is probably a better chance that no matter where you are, you're going to get hit. A few, obviously, isolated or stray, or we like to nail down the time of day as well. So on our 7-day forecast, you don't see percentages anymore, you see words. And I try to be more specific with morning rain, night rain, because if there is a, 50% chance of rain, according to POPs, your percentage, but that rain's not coming in to 10 p.m. at night, you're not blowing out your whole day because there's rain at night. So, I try to give a little more impact on your life versus a percentage that, an app or whatever would spit out, because weather apps love to do that. If you recognize the one on the left, It's not great. I don't use it. I get questions about it all the time. I'm like, I don't know where that data comes from. I've tried to figure it out. If you go through, there's like 7 menus, and I'm like, all right, are they pulling National Weather Service? Are they associated with the Weather Channel? I don't know. So I'm digging deep into these things, and they're like, data could come from any of these sources. And since they're a global company, there's ones in different countries. There's not a person behind this at all. This is straight data being fed at you, which is great because it's a constant stream of information. You know how it is now. Data's coming in, information's coming in all the time. But that one can't tell you. It's real good at putting a snowflake 7 days out, though. 10 days out, I love that. Sometimes it'll even take the data and be like, day 10, 4 to 8 inches of snow in Hamilton, and I start getting screen grabs of it. I'm like, what are you talking about? The system that this app is popping out is is not even in Hawaii yet. How in the world is that going to pop out an accurate forecast day 7 to 10 of a snowfall amount for a storm that might fizzle way before it gets here? That's the thing with these, especially in the long range, right? So it basically is straight model data. It picks one, it rides that one. We're people actually analyzing the data, and we know that sometimes these models like to get crazy. The GFS constantly throwing out a big storm on day 7 to 10. Most of the time, it either it moves by hundreds of miles, or it slows down, or it speeds up. But yeah, but someone will grab that information or look at a weather model on a wide screen and go, oh, look at that. That's 8 inches of snow for Hamilton. And we're like, that's 10 days away. That storm may not make it to us. It'd be like standing out in the Pacific Ocean, throwing a dart and nailing the bullseye, right? Or taking a cross-country road trip. I take wrong turns. Storms can drift. They can slow down. They can speed up. They can fall apart. So typically, if you're seeing something on an app 7 to 10 days out that's giving you a specific number forecast for your town for snowfall, give it some time. Wait. Let the storm actually hit the United States first, because we're not sampling storms that are out over the ocean. Hurricanes for sure, right? If it's a hurricane, they send hurricane hunter jets into these storms. They punch the cores of those storms. They get all the information. It's not the case with these winter storms that would be coming our way. Wait till they get on land. Give the weather balloons 24 hours to see what this storm is actually made of, and then we'll be able to tell what impact it's going to have. If it's going to be snow or sleet or freezing rain or a whole lot of nothing when it gets here. So be aware, some apps and the data you get from them are not put together by people. We use our brains, our historical data, our knowledge of what systems tend to do when they roll through this region. And we update it by hand, which does lead to fat finger mistakes. Yesterday, I accidentally wrote 150, and someone screen grabbed it because it said the feels like temperature was going to be 610. I'm like, okay. I did that at 3:10 in the morning. Give me a minute. Went back and changed it. Ours is hour by hour is updated by us and updated all day. This is done by a local person. You know what? Please use the WLWT app. Thank you. Use local. I don't care what your source is, but it's going to be better than the national ones for sure, because there's an actual person behind it who is looking at the data, analyzing the variables, and actually putting together a forecast by hand. The app does not care about Hamilton, Ohio. The app is like, this is what the data says. Models are not a forecast. They're models. They help us put together a forecast. That's what the data that goes into the supercomputer spits out. But we do a lot of forecasting every single morning. That's why I get up at 2 a.m. Roll into the station by 3. On an easy day, 30 minutes of forecasting. On a crazy weather day, I mean, sometimes I set my alarm earlier, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on the storm, to put together, exactly what time Hamilton gets hit with the snow, when it changes over to rain, how much you're going to get on the east side of town versus the west side of town. All of that is then nailed down for our specific area. So local is king with those. You're going to get much better weather information from a person who's looking at it. Computers are awesome. We love technology. A person quality controlling that is actually very important. There's a lot of places to get it online. I now do an Instagram forecast every day, which I think is very digestible for the Instagram people. But, still on air at 4:30 in the morning in front of my big old green screen there. So this is our setup at the station. Got a green wall with a green floor. I can't wear green because I will be a floating head giving you the weather, which would be very entertaining, but also very distracting, and I feel like my bosses would not appreciate that. So the camera that's looking at me basically takes the color green, and in the control room, that basically deletes the color green and replaces it with whatever weather graphics I've created. So whether it's the radar for storm tracking, or the high school football forecast, or the hour-by-hour outlook, I make all those graphics myself, early in the morning. And at 4:30, I go step in front of that guy, and this is what you see. I'm looking at the 2 monitors. Boop. Go back 2. So you can see that over there. 2 monitors on 1 monitor on each side, so I can see what you guys see at home. Because otherwise, I'd be talking about Butler County and pointing at Kenton County, and that's no good. The worst was when I worked in Mississippi, because Mississippi and Alabama have very similar states. But they're mirror images. They're like this, and we were right on the line. So yeah, it's opposite when I see it. I'll show you here that in a second. But anyway, that's me giving the forecast. When the anchors look at the teleprompter, they get what's on the left. They get scripts, right? And some of it's ad lib, but most of it is written overnight by producers and reporters and themselves. What's on the right is what I see. So I see the graphics, and usually myself there, but I took the picture off to the side. So that's how I do the weather. I also get to do a lot of weird things that aren't weather related. It's a strange career. I went into it for science, but I've also faced off against Joey Chestnut in a broad eating contest. I swim with the sharks every year at the aquarium. I grill out on the first baseline at the Reds game. I got to participate in American Ninja Warrior. I almost beat Todd Frazier in a home run derby wiffle ball contest. Came in 3rd. But lots of crazy things that I have the opportunity to do. Oh, yeah. I have been on the Today Show with Al Roker. That was actually 6 years? No, 20. Oh, wow. Math is bad. 8 years ago. 8 years ago this week, I was on the Today Show with Al Roker, and I fed him Skyline Dip. So we get to do a lot of crazy things. Obviously, weather is very important to everybody's everyday life. Most of the time, the weather is not serious, severe, but we're there for that too. On those days, my alarm will go off at 12:30 a.m. to get to work on time, to put together the forecast, to relieve Kevin, who's been there all night. We're there 24 hours updating our information. We're going to be there as long as you need us for. So I know people are increasingly using their phones for everything, but we're on your television giving you hopefully very reliable information. We are most accurate. I know accurate means exact. Well, we are most accurate. We're not impervious to error. I know we get it wrong. It happens. We own it, though. So you're welcome to come up to me in Kroger and say, hey, you said it was going to fill in the blank. And I'm like, I know. And each one is a learning opportunity. Just like in sports, when they lose a game, you go back, you look at the game film. We go back. We'll look at what the models were showing, maybe something we missed, or just something that didn't play out the way that you thought it would. So that's how we go through our days. And oh my goodness, it's almost 1 o'clock. I am so sorry, I talked a lot. You may have some questions for me. If you don't want to run away, I'd be happy to answer some of those. Does anyone have a question for me? Or did I go through everything? You're obviously now fully versed in all things weather.
Look at you all being shy.
I know. He's going to shove the microphone in one of your faces. That's what they do. Let's see. What are the
I got one at the back.
Hey, in the back.
It's always at the back.
I was going to say, I can tell you the common questions I get.
Always at the back.
Yes.
I'm coming to you.
Then you get your steps in, Ian. That's what. I want the next question to come from the very front, so you have to walk all the way back.
Fellow Bobcat.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you.
For sure.
I have a barometer at home that's very old, but how do you set it? There's a gold, and a darker, like a black arrow or something. So,
you know what? I used to know, and you set it on a day where the pressure is a whole number. So like 29, 28, that makes it easier. Because if it's in the middle, there's so many little infinitesimal things. But I do know that you can recalibrate, set it, So use the other information that's available from, observations from
Right.
the Butler County Airport or whatever it is. If it's a day where you're right on a line,
Right.
that's your best bet to reset it. But I don't specifically know how to recalibrate them, but I do know that's when you do it, when you can go right where it's supposed to be.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes. Oh, wait.
Coming to
Wait
you.
for the microphone.
Coming to you.
So I live in Oxford.
Yeah.
And I'm part of the Brookville Lake.
Yeah.
Is it a real thing?
No.
How you see the clouds coming, and then you see them, and they
Yes.
split, and then they come together. And
Everybody thinks there's like a dome over their part of town that will take the storm and split it away, and it looks like it on the radar for sure. I know. And different parts of town have that same theory, like, oh, there's whenever it comes into Boone County, it crosses the river and it doesn't do anything. There's no bubble over our area. Obviously there are differences, with longitude and latitude, like sun angles and things can play parts of why, just north of town gets more snow and south of town doesn't. But it's a weird phenomena that, hey, it's coming in and it was losing. Sometimes it's timing, like storms will hit Indy and go nuts and you're seeing all this damage, and by the time it gets to the state line, it goes. Sometimes that's just timing. If it's coming through at night, it's lost all of its energy from the sun, and it fizzled it all up. Whoops,
You got a question from your biggest fan here
Oh.
at the front?
Yes, Vera.
So they have the radios with so a couple of weeks ago they had the pretend Amber Alert for a test.
Oh, yeah, the
How
national
many times for tornadoes and Amber Alerts for tests? How many times do they happen a year for radios?
Okay, so that particular test was a very rare occurrence. They have done it once before, I believe. That was a test of the national network, because if there's ever something big and they needed to alert everybody at once. So those went off across the country. So didn't matter if you turned your phone, if you had all the alerts that normally go on turned off on your phone still went off. So if there is a major disaster somewhere, a national emergency there where they need to get everyone's attention, that happens. But on your phones, or if you have a weather alert radio at home, you can set those to go off for just tornado warnings and just for where you are, because you know how your phone knows where you are. Or a weather alert radio will know what county you're in, because you can program it that way. Then it'll go off for flash flood warnings if you want it to go off for flash warnings, and you do want it to go off for flash flood warnings, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings. Sometimes there's some lesser warnings that you don't need them to go, like dense fog advisory. Okay. They don't need to be woken up for that. But you can specify those. But it's a good question. But Amber Alerts will also go off. That's a police thing, right? So that is done for the safety of children. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. One over here. Excuse me.
This is a personal question.
love it.
Did your grandfather get to enjoy your success as
No.
a weather woman?
He passed away when I was in 7th grade. So
Oh, okay.
he did not. My grandma did. She passed away a few years ago, and she's funny. Toward the end of her life, she did suffer from Alzheimer's, but she knew that I was on TV, and every time she was like, just give me the weather. Stop the chatting. Randy, just stop the chatting. Okay, Grandma. I just want the information. I know you do. But thank you for asking that. No.
Any more questions? One at the front. There we go. Bob at the front.
Not a question, but I ran into your snow last night, thank you. I was driving from Anderson to Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, you went head first into it.
Yeah, at 6:30, I was in Milford, and you couldn't see
Yeah.
until you got to maybe on the other side of Montgomery. Then the sun came out.
Yes. on the-
Everybody had slowed down, had their windshield. I was afraid we were in a squall or something.
Right, and snow squalls are incredibly dangerous. They just started issuing snow squall warnings a couple years ago. I don't know exactly when, but in recent history. And our advice is to treat those like tornado warnings. Like if it is a snow squall, do not get in your car. Do not go someplace. Like hold on for a minute, because it does create whiteout conditions. And I mean, we've had situations where we've had major accidents where people have died in a snow squall that caused a huge pileup, right on 275 in Coleraine a couple years ago. But But yeah, when you went headfirst into it, so you're going into the wind,
did.
so it's blowing right at the front of your car. Yeah, it was reduced visibility for sure.
Traffic did slow down.
Thank
Yeah,
goodness.
Thank heavens, yeah.
Yeah, my family's all spread out now. My dad still lives on the east side of Cleveland. My sister lives in Milwaukee. My brother lives in Sarasota. But my sister was sending me photos from Milwaukee because obviously they got it the day before us, right? And it was the same thing. It was white out, sunshine. Of course, up there it's been cold enough that it accumulated. And then my dad in the snow belt, 6 inches of snow last night with sleet on top. So, yeah, good times. I keep convincing him to move to tropical Cincinnati, and he won't do it. But
Well, thank you so very much, Randy, Rico, Channel 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we certainly appreciate it.
well, I know our friends at Hamilton have been putting this on TV, but would you guys mind if I took a big selfie of all of us here? I'll just kind of do it this way. Everyone smile. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, wait, I'm right in the projector. That's not going to fit. There we go. Okay. Everyone smile. Yay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Randy.
That's me. I want that.
Awesome. You guys will be on the news tonight.
Absolutely.
They used to
Actually, if you guys want to send it to my producers, they'll totally put it on TV tonight. Cool.
Love that. We had your good friend Karen Johnson out here last night. Yesterday afternoon, I should say. If you haven't seen our space alien outside here with First Ride, you may have seen it a bit on the news yesterday. We have some pranksters who each Halloween like to dress up the First Ride father and daughter on the bicycle. So he is a space alien chasing a child on a bike. So
Oh, lovely.
always lots of fun.
And now we know that UFOs
Aliens
are
are
a thing.
among us.
So maybe they landed in Hamilton.
And they like the Beatles. So thank you so much, Randy. We really do appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having
Thank
me,
you.
everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you coming out today. As I said, next month we start celebrating Christmas. I'm very happy about that. I'm very sorry about that. We're something about it. But Christmas is coming, as is winter. So get your jingle bells on. It's great. We'll have Christmas lunch here with 2 Women in a Kitchen. Speaking of 2 Women in a Kitchen, next year, get your tickets for that. We have a Celebrating Self with Kirsten herself coming out from the kitchen and onto the stage. And we've got some special things there planned. So there's brochures there for you if you want to have a look about everything that's coming up at the Fitness Center. But we're really excited about that, as we are for the weekend. So I only have one more thing to say. Go Bills. Thank you.